My guest in the Nimataion today is Mandy Wilde, and together we are spinning a yarn. Mandy, you're a psychic medium, educator on the divine feminine, astrologer, and yeah, as we said before, a witch, a sorcerer. Welcome to the
Correct.
show.
Yes. Thank you. It is an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Mandy, what has been your favorite childhood story?
I love this question. And when you reached out and asked me to be a guest, I was so excited to talk about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. One of my favorites, and is not Narnia like one of the most magical places ever? I came about this book when I was a very young child. It was in my grandmother's library, actually, in her little library at home. And as a child, I was, as probably a lot of us are, we were seeking to escape, right? I was seeking particularly to escape from some childhood trauma, some pain that I was enduring, and it was a very confusing time for me. And so disassociation became a bit of a survival mechanism. And so whenever things would get too much, I would retreat into my own imagination. I would retreat into a closet, actually, and I would retreat into a wardrobe. So when I did find this book, it was everything I was looking for. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis, of course, is one of those stories that really resonated with me during that time. Not just because of the idea of Narnia catching my attention, but it was the wardrobe itself,
Hmm.
because that was something I really gravitated toward as a child. Now, as I grew older and began to explore my own path as an occultist and a medium, I realized that the portals weren't just places to hide, but they were actual gateways to transformation. And they became really powerful symbols of crossing thresholds, moments of change, right? Where we start to shift our realities altogether. So, like looking back, I can see how that childhood longing for like a hidden door to open up into this world of magic was now what I was seeking as an adult and a practitioner. Um, I am a witch. I am a devotee of Akate, as you can probably see. And we all know, or some of us probably do, that Akate is the goddess of thresholds, is the goddess of transitions, right? And she became and is a very central part of my work as a medium too. This between the worlds, working between life and death, with the unknown, but especially working with the spirit world. So in many ways, my relationship with Akate mirrors that journey that I went on with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, with the doorways. Um, and my fascination with doorways and gates and portals as a child um, kind of became literal as well. I have a collection of photographs of doors on my phone that exceeds probably what's healthy with people. And whenever I live in Los Angeles, and there's these beautiful doorways, usually that lead into like really magical living spaces. And so I'm always like kind of creeping around on people's maybe not so property, but trying to peek in like the little windows of the doorways and really loving what that means. I feel like it ignites this sense of something fresh is about to happen, something new is about to happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is just so much more than a children's story. I feel like it's this, from like a metaphysical perspective, it's this really powerful exploration of transformation, of spiritual awakening, of like an eternal struggle between like light and shadow, and it's packed with symbolism that resonates really deeply, I think, with anyone walking a spiritual path or a magical path. I mean, the wardrobe as the first clue, right? It's this portal of a threshold between the mundane world that we live in and this magical, mystical realm.
Hmm.
Crossing into that world of Narnia is like stepping in to our own inner world, right? It's this like place of deep truths of our own hidden powers. And each character, I feel like, represents a part of this like spiritual journey that we're on. Like Lucy as the seeker, the one who initially trusts her intuition, and actually senses the magic before anyone else. And she embodies this like willingness to believe and explore the unknown, where Edmund, on the other hand, is this representation, I feel like, of like the shadow self. His betrayal, right? His like eventual like redemption, shown how essential it is to face our darker parts of the self. And then, of course, like Susan and Peter, the leaders, that represent like sovereignty, the key to like any sort of spiritual maturity. And then, the witch, that is representative of like stagnation, of the eternal winter, of no growth, of no movement, that force that sometimes really holds us back in our own paths. And then, of course, like the great Aslan, which is the renewal of higher consciousness. It's about like life, about transformation. Of course, he's a lion. Of course, he's a Leo. like it feels. I'm
Okay.
assigning him a Leo.
Yes. So,
But
so
go
in
ahead.
recognizing the characters as parts of ourselves, when did you recognize that your fascination for doorways had moved into you yourself becoming a doorway and working as a medium?
I think, gosh, I want to say that I was much too, well, I want to be very careful when I say this because I don't think you're much too old to do any of this. But I do remember being in about seventh grade when I was living in New Mexico, and I would close my eyes, and on my walk home through like, we lived in like kind of like a deserty area, I would close my eyes, and in order to get to my home first, or just quicker, I would imagine myself walking through like a portal to get there very quickly. And I think I started to do light work with that, even though I didn't know what it was I was doing way back then. But it probably came about more closely to my high school years, my later high school years, when I did realize I'm I'm the door. I'm always the door, and I can always open and close when I'm ready. Um, yeah, yeah. I would say probably around like later high school years.
I can relate to that, yeah. And in in a sort of in a way, does this story still accompany you today? Is it? I suppose it's one of these books that you can read over and over, and you discover new things every time.
I love this. Yes, I actually have it over on my coffee table along with Prince Caspian. They're lovely books to revisit. I think C.S. Lewis's world is very magical to begin with, but I think it's a good reminder, um, as adults and as practitioners, to not take for granted these childhood stories, because they help remind us that imagination is magic, and that it's much closer to us than a lot of people would like to admit.
Mm.
And we do a great disservice to ourselves, I feel like, as we age, how we push back, like, the cartoons, the childhood stories, like our imagination, our intuition is attached to that, right? It's very closely attached to that. And so as we push them away, we are in a sense quelling our intuition, which is a guiding force for us in a magical, on a magical path,
Yes,
rather. So yeah.
absolutely. I I think of this Doctor Who quote that's been reproduced as a meme again and again that says, sometimes, or sometime you'll be old again to appreciate fairy tales again. And, and
So true.
yeah, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it's so true. It I love children's books, and I when I was in undergrad, my degree is in writing, and I took this whole course on writing children's books, and I never in a million years thought I would be doing that, which I'm not doing that, but it really helped open up um, that imagination on a different level, on more of a primal level, right?
Hmm.
Um, it also, I feel like when you digest a childhood book like this too, it is really clear. It's like steps and symbols, what we tend to kind of like lose, maybe in like other literature, which I love. I'm a bookophile. I've got my their entire house is like filled with books. But yeah, sometimes I feel like we lose like these these primal chunks that we gain from stories like this.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned cartoons. That's interesting. I mean, that's a leading question now, but have you also experienced in different states of consciousness that your perception is sort of this cartoony thing? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Great. Yeah. And great. Yeah. Great question. Um, I feel like there is a bit of a cartoon nature when it comes to the spirit realm to begin with. Much like when we have like caricatures of ourselves drawn by maybe like a cartoon artist, or when sometimes when we close our eyes and like think of someone in our life, it's not necessarily the great details that we see at first. It's the broad, like the painting of them, right? Um, and so, yeah, absolutely. When I do mediumship, a lot of times some of the symbols or messages or spirits that are coming
Mhm.
forward approach me in more of this kind of, I don't want to say cartoon or like animated, like, but
Yeah.
it's very brushed over. I very it when I get details, it's when they kind of close in and they're like, let's go a little bit deeper. But if I'm just getting like spirits come through, it feels kind of cartoonish, so
Yes.
to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm. So it's no wonder that we touched a bit of this world in our talk because we started with a doorway and we put maybe a foot into this other world. And Mandy, I thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to do that. And it was an honor and a pleasure to talk with you.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me on. I'm so honored to be here. I think what you're doing is very special, and check out all of these things because they're great.
Absolutely. In the show notes, you will find the website of Mandy and the link tree. And yeah, have a great time at this end of the year. That's also a portal leading to the next year. That was the last show for this year. And see you on the other side. The world is magical.
Thank you.